Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Legal Paige podcast. Today, we have Alexandra Kaval, founder of Grace-Based Christian Coaching. You're listening to the Legal Paige podcast, where we chat about life and business with a legal twist. I'm Paige, attorney and photographer helping online businesses and creatives tackle their business dreams without breaking out in hives. No more legal mumbo jumbo. This podcast features simple, bite-sized advice that'll have you legally legit in no time. Are you ready? Let's get started. Now, Alexandra is a wife, sister, daughter, friend, and most a follower of Jesus. She is incredibly grateful for the love, life, and hope that he provides and finds great joy in sharing his goodness with others. Alexandra obtained her coaching credentials from the Christian Coach Institute, accredited by the International Coaching Federation. She also holds an MS in HR development and a BA in psychology from Villanova University, and she's worked with various companies in several industries for close to 10 years. She is the founder of Grace-Based Christian Coaching. It's a company that provides an inspirational and judgment-free space for women to grow, and is a place where that you can transform from overwhelmed to overjoyed. Her passion is to partner with Christian women so that they can live life on purpose. In this episode, we dive deep into how Alexandra started this life coaching business, what life coaching really is, and when it's a good time for you to start looking into life coaching. So without further ado, let's get to this episode, Legal Pagers. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Legal Paige podcast. Thanks for tuning in today. I am overly excited because my friend Alexandra Kaval is here today to talk all about the value of life coaching. Alexandra, thanks for joining us.
Hey, I'm so excited to be here with you today, Paige.
You guys, Alexandra is a life coach in the Christian space world, and I met her at the Creative at Heart conference, round 9. She was in our small group. It's called a panel group session, and I just loved her outlook on life and her specific type of business that she owns and how she has grown it into a business that's not only pursuing her passions, but also helping women. So I know I introduced her at the beginning of this episode, but Alexandra, I know you, but lots of people listening do not know who you are. So I would love it if you could introduce yourself and kind of share what you do, why you do it, and kind of where you started from and where you're at now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hey, everyone, I'm Alexandra. I am a certified life coach for Christian women. I get to spend my days talking about goal setting and Jesus really with women. And it's just such a joy. And it's just not lost on me how incredible it is that I get to spend my days doing just this. But I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. I grew up actually down in Florida, down on the West Coast in Naples, and went to undergrad and graduate school up in the Northeast, right outside of Philadelphia. So all up and down the East Coast. I have my master's in HR. So that's sort of how my journey had started out. I had always really, really loved the development side of things and was just curious of how to use my psychology degree, right, in a way that could be meaningful. And so I found out about industrial organizational psychology or workplace psychology and pursued that for quite a bit. Long story short, there were several companies I was with back to back that were acquired by larger organizations, which made for really, really tricky and not so great working environment. And I thought, my dad had actually been a business owner, and I thought, I might want to pursue this entrepreneur thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where coaching kind of came into play. It was something that I was always curious about. I thought, though, that coaching was something that you kind of had to do in the sunset of your career, right? When you had everything figured out. And the more that I learned about it, the more that I realized that's not what it was at all. It's really helping to empower and facilitate someone through a process so that they can kind of come to those solutions on their own. And like I had said, my coaching is faith-based too. So we bring in that as an element of it. And so kind of going along with the whole story. It's just I had paired the faith background as well as the goal setting and development side of things. So not only did I think, maybe I can do coaching. I don't have to wait until I'm in my 60s or whatever, but I can do it now, and I can kind of marry those two things together. So 2016 ended up getting certified as a professional life coach, and then 2017 had launched the business. For some background, I'm still debating whether I'm an Enneagram 1, so the perfectionist, or an Enneagram 3, the achiever. I made the decision initially to create my own website, and I accidentally hit publish on the website. And I was like, heck with it. We're just going to go with it. And that's how the business officially got started in 2017. And then just kind of launched from there. A year later, 2018, took the business full time, and have just been really, really enjoying being in business and diving in. And so what it kind of, like I had said, I love the development side of things. I know what it's like to not be working in your best fit job, and I know what it is like to be working in it. And so I just have such a heart for other women who are not in their sweet spot, if you will, and to kind of help them figure out what that can look like. But not only that, it has a lot to do with, well, what are the pain points or the challenges that you're going through, and how can we move from a place where you're just exhausted and overwhelmed to a place where you're really living with intention, and you're living in a place of joy and just contentment with where you're at. So much of what I do, it's really working with women who are high impact women. They have done a lot actually in their professional careers, and it's almost like they need a life plan, just like they've got a business plan, if you will. And so it's a lot of saying no too, a lot of what are your right no's and what are your right yeses. So that is just a bit about me and what I do.
That's wonderful. I have a couple follow-up questions to that because I'm really interested. So you got started in 2017. So you've been doing this for a couple of years now. And I'm wondering if over that period of time, you kind of just hit publish on your website and you're like, okay, I'm giving this a go. And now that you've had a bunch of clients, where would you say women, these high impact women that you work with, where would they need to be in their headspace? Because there's a lot of people listening in that are entrepreneurs, online business owners, where I'm sure you get this question a lot, but I love asking this to life coaches because I think it's always a different answer. And especially for what you do and the type of coaching that you do, where do you need to be in kind of your self-awareness to be like, okay, I think it's time for a life coach?
Yeah, oh, that's such a good question. So I think when I see the most people come to me when they're in a spot where they're ready, they're sort of fed up enough. They're in a place where they're very frustrated with how things are going. They're sort of at the end of their rope, but they're also motivated. They're motivated to kind of do the work and dig in, and they're open enough. I don't know if it's maybe humble or vulnerable sort of is the right word. But they kind of have a humility that, what I'm doing, it's not working, and I need someone to kind of come alongside me and support me right now. But they're not so inundated that they've got to have the space to do the work. So I kind of use the example, like I'm a personal trainer, if you will. So I can give you the exact exercises. I can help support you along the way, but you are the one who needs to lift the weights. So there's got to be enough motivation and energy there to be able to do something about what it is that we dig into in the coaching sessions.
Gotcha. So okay, so say we're there, but we're still really nervous about hiring someone. How does before you start, diving into what you usually, teach and kind of your overall approach here, what can we expect when we're looking for a life coach? Like, what is that commitment phase? Like, how long do we need to be invested in it? I know lots of people who want this are obviously at this point of fed up, like you talked about, Alexandra. So it's like, okay, we have a lot on our plate already. How do we make space for life coaching? And what is that going to look like for us?
Yeah, another amazing question. So I would say a couple of things. So, how to make space for it. So, something that I'd encourage people to do who are considering exploring working with a life coach is to go ahead and kind of just brain dump and list out what are all of the different goals or challenges that I'm kind of facing, and what would I want to go into this trying to accomplish. Coaching in its purest form, it's really empowerment. Sometimes people think of coaching as more of mentorship or consulting. And in its purest form, it's me asking you questions so that you can get at the solution. Sure, if I have resources, I will provide those. And if I have other things that are ideas for you, sure, we'll go there. But it's really truly an empowerment process. So the sessions are directed by the client. So they come to the session with, well, what is it that I need to dig into today? And then we'll kind of tackle that and go through the coaching process. There are 4 stages in the coaching process that I was trained in to help them come away with. There are kind of 2 parts of it. One is a mindset change. How can I start thinking about this differently? One of the things Laura Casey had said at the Creative at Heart conference is really, what's the best day to get started? It's not January 1st. It's the day that you're motivated to do the thing. So coaching, I think, is a lot about motivation, and then it's a lot about action and doing things. So those are some of what to expect. What could this look like? And then, kind of to your point, yes, it can be more time, but then I think it's also really saving you a lot of time too. So there are kind of 2 things to look at with that. One is, I would probably plan to maybe carve out some white space to kind of dig in and do the work every week. So maybe that looks like putting a 1 hour twice a week on your calendar to really do the thing that you're planning to use coaching for. So that's one way to look at it. And then another way too is that you kind of think of it as like you're a ship, if you will. And even if you are going to shift, let's say, 5% or 10% to the right, you are going to end up in a very, very different direction if you turn the ship even 5 or 10%. So sometimes maybe it's something minor with coaching. Sometimes it's transformational amounts. It's these little changes that add up to something really, really big. So what I'll say with that is that as much as coaching, we are saying yes to certain things, we're saying no to a lot too. That helps us to go in that direction that you're purposed for. That makes the most sense with your giftings, your passion, and where you're at in life right now. So yes, it may be a little bit more for a period of time, but wouldn't we rather be going in a straight line and get to the destination more quickly than going in a very, very curvy line and just not ending up there, or ending up there much, much further after the fact? So I kind of say, like, the analogy I'll use with this 2 pages, that, if you're going to go to a destination that you're not super familiar with, like, of course, you're going to pull out your GPS. You want to get there the best way and the fastest amount of time. But maybe you kind of know, okay, I'm going from X to Y. I know that I have to go south, but that's pretty much all I know. Maybe I can ask for directions, or maybe grab a map on the way. I'll eventually get there, but I could probably just do it much more quickly and effectively with a GPS or with a coach.
Yes, I love everything you just said. And it's so true. What Laura Casey said at Creative at Heart, I remember she was like, Happy New Year to everyone, because we all think we have to start just implementing this like one big thing in our life, in our whatever, whether it's personal or business, that we have to do it like at a very specific time, like whether that's the beginning of the year or once every quarter. And it was like, what was it, like June 24th or 25th?
Yeah.
And she was like, Happy New Year, everyone. You start today. And I love that that's what you just said, because it's so true. Like, life coaching for everyone is going to come into their lives at a very different moment for every different person. And so just allowing that to happen kind of organically. And when you're feeling like, I love how you also said, like, when you're feeling like you're curving and you're not in a straight line and you're trying to figure out what to do, sometimes it's nice to just like have someone there to guide you and talk you through it that's worked with other women, that are also high impact and doing big things. So I love what you just said. And I love what you know, that the 2-part analysis for people like, yes, you have to create some space, but also it's just going to allow you so much more time for you to work on your business because you haven't been able to just narrow down and focus in.
Absolutely.
Okay. So all of that being said, everyone tuning in, if you are like at this point where you've been listening to Alexandra and you're like, okay, life coaching kind of sounds like something I might be interested in, or you're just like intrigued by this, online coaching that's happening now. I think it's really interesting in the US, and there's tons of us online entrepreneurs that we're needing help. Like we need guidance. We need someone to help us. And whether that's, Christian based or whether that's just you need like some type of entrepreneurial guru to help you that does life coaching as well. I just love how Alexandra marries the personal with the business as well, and how you can have, Jesus be your guiding force through everything that you do. So Alexandra, I would love for you to jump in here and just start telling everyone like how this can be so life-changing.
Yes. Okay. So such a good question. I would love to kind of give you a peek on the inside. So what does life look like for me, and what are my own challenges maybe as a life coach, and hopefully connect with a lot of y'all like, oh my goodness, this is something that I feel too. And I would love to kind of understand what change could look like in these areas. So one, to start with, it's just simply breathe, right? So it's simply breathing and reflecting. And this is just such an awesome benefit that coaching offers. So I'll give you a little insight into, again, mentioned perhaps an Enneagram 3. So it's sort of like go, 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 do, do, do. You're totally fine until all of a sudden one day you're not. Right. And so it's something that I kind of thought about. It's a little quick phrase, is just pausing is productive. And that really kind of sometimes just tears me up in the inside because it feels so different. I mean, again, I'm a coach, and so much of coaching is future focused. But a lot of it is just creating space to really dig in and be like, where am I at right now? And I think that's part of the power of coaching, that it really helps you unlock where you're at and what that means for where you need to go. So again, because I just can't stop talking about Creative at Heart, right? Because it was one of the best experiences. And Rachel Aline asked a question there, and she had said, what is it that prevents you from self-care? Because it's one of the most powerful things that you can do. And I took a moment to really think about that. And for me, the answer was, well, I don't do it because it just doesn't feel productive. And I was like, that's so backwards. That doesn't make sense. And I would argue in a way that life coaching is a form of self-care, if you will. It's really giving you that gift to dig in and treat yourself like you might a client or someone or a friend or someone in your own family. And so for me, so much of coaching has been about that pause. A lot of the clients will come to me feeling they're overwhelmed, they're feeling insecure, they're defeated, they know change is needed, but not where to begin with challenges and struggles like that. And I've experienced every single one of them. And so I think coaching is so powerful because it gives you the space to really pause and understand what's happening. Because sometimes in our own mind, we only go so far down the rabbit trail, right? We'll play this tape in our head and the same story again and again, but it never necessarily gets fully played out. And coaching allows you to do that so you can get through to that other side.
Yes, that's so true, because I think for lots of us, we're just stuck in our heads, right? Like we're working by ourselves. Mm-hmm. We usually have a home office or a couch office is what I like to call it, or, the kitchen table office. And we're constantly online. We're inundated with things, every minute, every couple of minutes. And it's really hard for us to focus in. And then, you said when you just allow yourself that space to breathe and really reflect. And then also, kind of my follow-up question to that is, how is it so much more beneficial with a life coach on the other side of it? Because lots of us will try to do the, solo meditation, if you will, or doing things by ourselves, or we read books, or we try to go to yoga, or we work out, or whatever it is. But how is it so much better? Or not, I guess not so much better would be the word, but how is it more beneficial to many people when you have another like person to bounce ideas off of, or for them, and you're trained as a life coach. Like, what does that training offer people?
Yeah, so another such a good question. And I would even first start it from the place of, keep doing those things. I think whether it's the yoga or meditation, I mean, it's so good to have those rhythms and routines and practices. And that's going to sort of be some of the glue that holds things together when life is just feeling crazy. But if you're sort of at a point where you know that your time is so precious and you really need to kind of kick it up to the next level, it just, we can sometimes just get there faster when we do it with someone else. And so to your point, right? So this was something that I did receive a certification in. So we will go through a proven process in every session, going from what's going on now, creating that sense of awareness, to, well, what do you want that vision to be, right? What is it that you're aiming towards? Because you need to know that so that you know when you've hit the goal, and just to have something to get really excited to work towards, and be motivated by. That's so much of it, is kind of getting ourselves pumped up to do the hard thing. And then we'll go, so you want to go here to there. And then, well, what are the steps? What's that strategy that we need to create for you to get you there? So we'll outline that. We'll work through that and really just list it out, right? And someone asking you those questions and going deeper than you'll necessarily do on your own. And we're just busy people. We've got a lot going on, and it's really hard. It's really hard to go to those uncomfortable places. And when we've got all of these distractions sort of inundating us, we don't kind of always get as deep as we need to move as far as we're capable of doing. And then the last step in the coaching cycle, if you will, is it's obstacles. And so we'll talk about, well, what are those challenges that are going to come up? How can you be proactive to plan for those, right? And so that's something that as a trained coach, you can expect in every coaching session. So that's just a little bit of an insight of what that looks like. But I mean, even as someone who is type A and super organized and super disciplined, there are things still, full transparency, on my to-do list that have been there for, months upon months. And so when I had started working with someone, that's when I really got to tackle those things and finally move them over, if you will. I had someone who was cheering me on, so that I felt safe, and I felt equipped to kind of go into those uncomfortable, hard spaces. I had heard a quote once along the lines of, you kind of need someone to really believe in you sometimes before you can believe in yourself, and to kind of have that support person and that cheerleader, someone who can remind you, like, wait, you are really good at this. And why are you having those conversations with yourself? Because sometimes we downplay, or we don't see things that are so visible to others. And so to have that outside perspective is so healthy. And then, of course, there's that really accountability, knowing when you verbalize and you say something aloud, it totally changes the game. A lot of times it dispels any of that fear or discomfort. And you're like, wait, why has this been a concern for months on end? This is crazy. And you start to say something to someone that they're going to follow up, they're going to hold you accountable. But not only that, at least, for my coaching, I do it in sort of the most really loving way possible, right? Cheering you on, wanting to see you be successful, but also being firm, right? Like, hey, these are things you said that are important, and this is what's going to change when these things happen. So what do we need to do to get you there? Or is this thing really important anymore, right? Can you let it go? Does it actually matter like you thought it did?
All such good things. Seriously, when you were talking, I was like, accountability, like a big one that lots of us need. Vulnerability, because we're just like, I think a lot of this world that has been created for us online on social media is like we're only so much vulnerable. I like to call it, the 80-20 rule, but it's backwards. I like to think we're like 20% vulnerable online and like the 80% is locked away deep down. And then I also love that you're like, you just need a cheerleader sometimes, because you can't just like think things and then you overthink things and then you're not sure if it's the right thing, and having someone there to be like, no, that's actually a really good idea. But then, like you said, Alexandra, but these were your morals and your values that were very important to you. And so as a life coach, you're able to like direct them in that way without losing sight of all of those things that they told you were super important to them. And
Exactly.
we can do that as solo people. So that was, I loved how you answered that. That was perfect. So I guess the last thing I would love for you to share with people is just a few examples. I think you'd said you'd be willing to share some examples of, really, I think that's what lots of us want to hear, is how does life coaching like help you in your personal life, in your business life? We would love to hear that.
Yes, definitely. And so I think there are a couple of different ways to tackle this. And so I'll kind of touch on where I'm going to go and then we'll just jump in. So one thing is we kind of think, well, what are the results, right? If I want to invest time and finances in this, like what can I expect and what can I look forward to? So I'll share some of the changes that will typically come and what people experience, my clients have the best women I work with, what they experience on the other side of coaching, and then would be more than happy to share a little bit as I've worked with coaches, what's kind of come out of that, and some really tangible examples too. So to start, coaching is so much about the prioritization. So as I kind of talk about the changes that clients will experience as we go through and after. So prioritization is a big one, right? It's sometimes we might say, oh, these are the most important things to me in my life. But then if you look at how you're spending your time, right, and what your maybe calendar looks like, it can be often quite different than what we say is actually most important. So it's really, a lot of times I'll talk with my clients about getting something from your head to your heart. So you might know, quote, the right answer, but how do you actually live it out? And so that's something that I'll partner with my clients so that they can actually do the things that are so important to them. Another piece is just managing time better. So we'll go into different exercises with that. I'm sure a lot of you have done an ideal week. That can definitely be a part of it. We'll think about what is it that they can eliminate maybe from their schedule. What is it that really needs to be, going back to the prioritization, prioritized in a different way. Maybe what keeps getting in the way from them doing the thing that's important, and just really digging in so that they can make the change. A lot is about faith too, right? So we want to go back to what are your driving values, and how can you let everything else flow from that? So that's definitely a piece of it. People don't necessarily tend to come with that as the forefront request, but that's something that will grow and grow. And a lot of times people will be like, I'm not necessarily getting more sleep, or my calendar doesn't look necessarily as different as I thought it might need to, yet I feel 10 times better, yet I feel so much more energized, yet my relationships, my marriage is going better than it ever has. I'm able to put boundaries in place at work, even though, let's say, I'm still getting 7 hours of sleep, 6 hours of sleep a night. So those are the balance, if you will, is something else that kind of comes into play. And really how to just get over those self-limiting beliefs. We are our own worst enemy, but we're also our own biggest advocate. So it's really trading in one set of beliefs for another, and being able to be more of a friend for yourself, and your own best cheerleader too. And so how do we do that? What does that actually practically look like? And clients will put that into play. A lot of times they'll start to, it's kind of neat. Coaching is something that you take with with you even after maybe a coaching engagement is finished. There are typical questions I'll ask. I'll have clients complete worksheets before and after each session too. And that really helps them to think about things in a different way. So it's almost like they're like, I feel like I have you kind of in my ear, in my shoulder, like, oh, what would Alexandra have me think about or ask at this time? And then they start thinking about their life challenges in a different way, which is just so neat to see how that really just transforms for different women over time. So I'll pause there. Any questions about that page before I'll jump into some even more specific examples of my own life?
Yeah. I thought it was really interesting when you said like just the ability to kind of, we all do that exercise where we're seeing like our week and how it's unfolding. And with life coaching, I love that you can be, you're working so closely with someone that instead of just thinking like, okay, what would I do? It's what would Alexandra tell me to do? Or how would she suggest that I go about this specific project or this specific situation? My question is like, how long does that take usually for people? Like, is that right away, a couple weeks in, a month in, 6 months in?
Such a good question. And so it's something like they'll know kind of where they can kind of tell what I tell them to do. These are the types of questions or the way that she'd get me thinking differently. So that again, it's because we're all adults, right? In the adult learning theory, again, my background, I have a master's in HR. It's when we come up with the solution, it's that much more motivating, that much more likely that it's going to stick. And so from a timing perspective, as I mentioned, I've been in business for a couple of years now and have changed my packages quite a bit. And what it looks like now is I'll offer a 3-month and a 6-month package because that's what I've found has been the most impactful and effective for clients. And so the way I'll share that is the 3-month, you need some time, right? So I'll meet with them up to 3 times a month, so up to 3 hours a month for 3 months. And that's sort of a sprint, if you will. So this is for the person who maybe has 2 different things that they want to focus on and see change. And of course, there's going to be more that probably comes up. Sometimes we'll use one coaching session for a topic. Sometimes it might take a couple, but it's just sort of, your start, right? You're doing the sprint. You want to see change in a couple of different areas, and you want to do that over a season. And then 6 months, that will meet twice a month. So they have 2 sessions a month over a 6-month time frame. So this is for someone who maybe has 4 or more different areas that they want to see changed. And I'll call this more of a marathon, if you will. So the change, it's continuous, it's constant, and they maybe know themselves and maybe they just need some accountability for a longer period of time. Maybe they would just like to see a bit more transformational change, and know that might come with a deeper commitment. And so I'll kind of say too, it's again, using the gym analogy, if you will, it's somewhat like working out, like coaching is. You want to be able to commit to it and be consistent with it. And that's when you're going to see the best results. So that's sort of how we got to the 3-month and 6-month package and time frame.
No, I love that. And that's super helpful for people too, because I think we're all like, okay, how long does this really take? And how much time do we need to invest? So I'm glad we finally got to this. Like as you've been working through this and you've been working with people, like what is kind of that sweet spot of time for people? And I love how you separate it out too into like, how many things are we working on here? Like you also got to boil that down and figure out like where you're at, what you're trying to work on, like what are your big things that you're going to work on with a life coach. So, okay. So with that being said, then I think we're going to talk about how this impacted you.
Yes. Okay. So I'll take it back to 2 things. One is we had earlier in the conversation talked about, well, how important part of coaching is pausing and part of it is looking to the future. And so I'll touch on a couple of examples and how that's been playing out in my own life. And one of them is, I guess it was last May, my husband and I ended up taking a full week with a weekend on either end. We had not had a trip that long since our honeymoon years prior, to just go to the beach and be with one another and connect and have a good old fashioned conversation that was longer than, maybe an hour, if you will. And so we had done that, and that And that creating that space to really just get in touch with where was God leading? Where were we feeling connected, or where were disconnects between he and I? And that was really the impetus for deciding, if we're going to take this leap and have you leave the corporate job and pursue this coaching thing full time, now is the time. Now is the time to make it happen. And so that's just a very practical example. I don't know that I would be doing this full time if I hadn't created that space. I don't think necessarily it has to be a 9-day trip, right? Even if you just take a day trip and drive somewhere and just have your phones away and connect with the people that really matter to you, just connect and put things aside and dig into what's going on. So that's been something really, really big, how the pause in my life had changed things. And then this past, I guess I have a tradition that I'll go on a longer vacation in May. This past,
I love that.
Right?
Why not make it an annual tradition?
Everyone should do it. So this past May, I ended up committing to taking 2 weeks off because, again, why not? If we're business owners, that's part of the joy. We get to manage our own schedule, and why I feel like we rob ourselves from a lot of the joy, maybe more than we need to. And again, just another thing, I think, whether it be a coach or someone else on your side, just helping to remind you, right? Like, why are you doing what you're doing in the first place? And then are you really honoring that? And so all that to say, I took 2 weeks off, did not anticipate being completely away from the computer the entire time, but I really got in vacation mode and I got into it pretty quickly. And so when I came back, what was able to happen was, my inbox was crazy, but I was so refreshed and I was able to dig in. And Paige, I had some drafts in my inbox that were there for probably almost 2 years, just sitting there. And I was able to just finish typing them out and send them and clear it all out. And it was just the most beautiful, amazing feeling of all time. So
I love it. That's awesome.
Yes, just an encouragement to all of y'all who are out there who just feel like you just need to go, go, go. And if only I manage my time a little bit better, everything will work itself out. I am living proof to tell you, just give yourself the break to pause and just see what happens. That pause is going to be productive. I promise you that. And so connecting it too with, what are some specific examples from coaching as I pause and then partner with someone to really move forward? A couple of things to think about are, one, I touched on this, but there's so much power to speak something aloud and to do it with someone else. So it really helps to get over whatever that roadblock is that I'm putting up myself, and help me to get through that thinking, well, I can't do this because of that, or this is just never going to happen. I'm not, either I'm not or I'm too much. And they'll really help you to kind of work through that and get to the other side. And it's just getting those scary thoughts out there, and then, explaining, well, what about this or what about that? And all of a sudden, you almost feel like you've got superpowers, if you will. And then the two other things I'll touch on is from a strengths-based perspective, how can coaching support you? This is something that was revolutionary for me. Again, this is maybe some of my Enneagram 1 coming out. Still got to figure that out, but drives me crazy. But I just was always seeing what was wrong or what wasn't good enough. Nothing was ever perfect enough. Everything was always lacking. And that's where my attention had focused. And it came to a time where I had a manager who had coached me in the sense of, well, let's start with what you did really well. Let's start by, let's say you just gave a presentation for the leadership group. What went great? Let's celebrate that. Let's dig into that. Let's make sure you're doing more of that. So that's definitely something that I'll do with my clients. We'll start from that place, because that's going to be so healthy, and get your mind open, right? Get you thinking from the right perspective. So I'll definitely incorporate strengths-based coaching into the work with clients, and then looking future focus for changes that you need to make. So maybe something happened and it wasn't the best result. And it's almost expecting that, like knowing that will be the reality at times. But then if that same scenario was to happen again, what would you do differently in the future next time? And to me, to kind of address it from that perspective was so much more approachable, so much healthier, because that's something that the past is the past. We can't do anything about that. But what can we do if we encounter the same exact scenario in the future? So those are some couple real life examples. Maybe you're starting to think through something for yourself, that I would just really encourage you to kind of go down that path, because it's a really, really good one where a lot of growth can come from.
Yes, it is. And I think examples are so helpful for people to kind of envision it and see it for themselves and figure out where they're at in, that whole process. And if this is a really good place to start. And you guys, if you're just like listening in and you're like, this is something that I'm interested in, I'm not quite sure if I'm ready for it. We're going to talk about at the end of this episode how you can get in touch with Alexandra. And I'm sure she would be happy to kind of talk with you, figure out where you're at, figure out if this is the right time and if you're ready for it. And it's also just something too, if you're like not even close to being ready to reaching out yet, just like keep this in the back of your mind and do some of these things that Alexandra has taught so far in this episode. Just giving yourself space and grace and pausing and thinking through critical things and where you're at and what projects you're working on, or like Alexandra said, like, why is that draft just sitting there and how long has it been sitting there? And what do you need as the motivator to get that thing done? So thank you, Alexandra, for sharing that. That's super, super helpful.
Okay, definitely.
Okay, so of course we're wrapping up the episode here, and there is no such thing as a Legal Paige podcast episode without talking about law stuff, because I'm an attorney and I, of course, cannot help myself. So obviously I had you on because I think that life coaching is really valuable and helpful for people. I'm doing it. A lot of my friends in the industry have life coaches, and it's just been like totally transformational for all of us. Mm-hmm. And people are always interested in like how you like started your business, and you talked about that. And I'm always like, okay, well, life coaching is really cool. And I work specifically with like all kinds of different coaches, whether that's nutritional coaches, life coaches. I love that you've got like the marriage of Christian coaching and life coaching together. And I am interested, like, what is one big legal lesson that you've learned while starting your business in, 2017 until now?
Yes. Okay. So I would say one of the big things, Paige, that jumps out is the coaching agreement. So that's definitely something for me that has evolved over the years. And I'm so glad it has, because I think it's both, not only a gift to me as the business owner, but also to the client, right? To understand, what are the expectations? What's this engagement going to look like? And what are our operating procedures, so that just it can be the best experience for both sides. So a couple of things that I'll touch on that I've added to the agreement, and maybe this will help someone too over here. So one of those is that coaching occurs in consecutive months. So I've had a couple of clients, especially in the beginning, where we started and then all of a sudden it dropped off, or wanting to take a break. And you want to be flexible, right? Because you understand, like, people have things going on in life, but you're not necessarily doing them a service with being flexible, is what I had recognized. And so as we had talked about earlier, coaching is really the most impactful when it's something that you're committed to and you're consistent with. That's when you're going to see the best results. That's when you're going to see the most massive change. So from both the client perspective and as a business owner, that's something that I added, that coaching occurs in consecutive months.
Yeah. And that's perfect. I have that in so many of the coaching agreements that I have customized for my clients. But that's a big one too, that it like things don't roll over, like your coaching calls don't roll over, and then it has to occur in one big fell swoop. And that's because like none of this coaching can actually provide the benefit that you hope your clients can get and that you want to offer them if they just like bounce back and forth through like being on and then being off and then being on. And like, it just doesn't work like that. So that's a really, really good point.
Exactly. And so that's been a good addition. There are a couple of others. One is from a cancellation perspective to just a short and sweet one. It's something that I didn't have in the beginning. So maybe just something to think about is a 24-hour cancellation policy. Again, this is something to be taken seriously. And my time is valuable. Your time is valuable too. Let's be committed to this and treat it that way. So that was another one. And then there were two others. One from a payment perspective, I had wanted to have some flexibility. Some clients do need a monthly payment. Some need a one-time payment, and they'll actually save more with the one-time payment. So that's another addition that I had added to the coaching agreement to really outline that at the get-go so they can understand what that looks like. And then the last piece was about a cancellation charge if the coaching agreement ends earlier. So what I'll do is before a coaching engagement will even start, I'll have a 30-minute clarity call with clients. And what that is, it really gives them a taste of what coaching entails. So it's like a mini coaching session, if you will. So I'll spend about the first 20 minutes really coaching them and letting them have a taste of what it's like and what it would be like to experience it. And then we'll spend the remainder of the call kind of talking about what are the logistics, what are the different packages, answering any of their questions. So I want to do my very best to educate potential clients and set them up for success so that they really know what to expect, what the results are like, what the process is like. But sometimes I've had a small handful of clients, maybe they have financial difficulties or something comes up with their life that they need to end the engagement earlier than we had agreed upon. And so I had to kind of think, well, what does that look like on my back end too as a business owner, because this is a business and my livelihood, and I need to protect that too. And so what that looked like at my end is if someone cancels before their 3 months or 6 months is up, they're able to do so. However, they will need to expect a certain charge per session. So they'll either be billed that, which is higher than the charge per session would be, right? Of course, if they'd gone through the whole coaching package. So they would either need to pay that balance if they were, let's say, on a monthly payment, or if they were on the one-time payment plan, what I would do would be to, let's say, I guess, refund them the remaining amount. But again, keeping in mind that the per session charge would be higher if you end earlier, because I want to reward the people, right, who have the larger packages and make that more affordable. And so this is a way that I can still honor the different pricing tiers, but then also, be mindful of myself as the business owner as well.
Yes, all of that is so, so, so good to have in your coaching agreement. And I think I just want to chime in and say all of this can be customized. So you guys, everything that Alexandra is talking about, if you're like doing something similar to, coaching online or coaching people and having different packages and of course like cancellation policies and all of this is really good to know. But there's always like, you can do it and tailor it to your business. And I tell all of my legal clients this as well, is like this 24-hour cancellation policy that Alexandra has. Like I have clients that have like a 72-hour one, and that's what works better with their schedule. And so I just want people to know like everything can be modified to your specific personal needs and business needs. So thank you for touching on those. And it's so true. Like the cancellation one is a big one. Having consecutive months, ensuring that there is an ability for people to have like payment plans. That's really, really helpful for larger, monetary amounts that people are paying you. And lots of people just need, a little bit more leeway. And then I love how you talked about in your contract, you want to, like, you said this at the very beginning, you want those expectations and the relationship to just start out on the right foot. And so I love that you have like a mini conversation with them and it's like a mini coaching session. But then of course, at the end of it, you get into the, nitty gritty details where you're like, okay, well, this is what you need to expect working for me. And that just like all of the communication is out there on the table, and like all of those expectations, the responsibilities of both parties are, and that's really helpful. So I love that you added that into how you're delivering this coaching agreement and getting your relationship started with them. So, okay, Alexandra, you have shared so much with us here today. This was super, super just enlightening. I loved listening to everything that you have shared with us today. And I'm sure people need to get in contact with you. So the first thing is I think you have a freebie for people listening.
Yes, I do. If you want to grab that, it's this exclusive ebook that I just have for the people in my email fam. You can grab it over at gracebaskedchristiancoaching.com/subscribe. And what it is, it's an ebook on how to make your vision board come to life in 7 simple steps. So I know that sometimes at the beginning of the year, we get really jazzed up and hop onto Pinterest and create this super inspirational, sparkly vision board. And then all of a sudden, maybe we don't see it again until the next January, right? And we don't want that to happen. I want that to be your life, to be the life that you're living. And so I've outlined my very, very best tips in a really easy to follow document in this mini ebook that you can grab. And I'd love to have you join the email family too when you do that.
Yes, we are all going to go join. We're all going to grab that because it's so true. We make these huge calendars at the beginning of the year and how we want our vision to come to life. And then it goes in a closet 2 weeks later and we forget about it. So this is going to be super helpful. Everyone, we are going to link that in all of the show notes. So don't worry, you can find the link. And then Alexandra, where can people find you if they have further questions or they want to join your life coaching program?
Yes, thanks. So there are a couple of different ways that we can continue the conversation. I would love to meet you guys. One of them, it's going on over to gracebaskedchristiancoaching.com/contact. And that's how you can go ahead and grab that free of charge mini coaching session, that clarity call. So that is definitely a really good way to get connected. And then there's also, of course, Instagram. We always love hanging out over there. And so you can find me over there at Grace-Based Christian Coaching.
Perfect. And again, you guys, we will, of course, link like crazy Alexandra in this episode. Thank you so much for joining us today, Alexandra. It was a joy to have you. And thanks everyone for tuning in.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Legal Paige podcast. See, I told you being legally legit isn't so scary. Be sure to visit thelegalpage.com for all show notes. And it would be super awesome if you could head over to iTunes and leave a review. Last but not least, don't forget to join my free Facebook group for unlimited legal and biz Q&A. Chat soon, Legal Pagers.